say that the Bible teaches the same thing. If you go to 1 Corinthians 7:36, I'll read it. But if any man think that he behaveth himself uncommonly toward his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, which is when she reaches puberty. So if you think that you behave uncommonly with your virgin, which is somebody that's betrothed to you, when she reaches puberty, if she pass the flower of her age, and need so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not, let them marry. So the Greek word here is hyperakmos, which is puberty. And if you want more detail about it, you go to Leviticus 15:24. It tells you when a woman see her flower, you're not supposed to lay with her and stuff. That's the law of that's Leviticus 15:24. So when it says if she reaches the flower of her age, that means if she reaches the age where she see her period.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. I know I said a lot, but I have to stop the video and give you the teaching. When you bring up 1 Corinthians 7:36, you have to make sure you ask for a translation before 1952. This is very important. Whether it's the King James Version, the William Tyndale Version, the Geneva Version, the Bishop Version, all those are good. But don't take any translation after 1952. Why? Because when liberalism came and secularism, all these Christians changed the translation of the Greek word hyperakmos. So you mean to tell me for 1952 years, everybody, all Christian, understood this verse to say flower of her age, which is the age where she sees her period, her menstruation. And if you go in the same Bible in Leviticus 15:24, it tells you if a woman sees her flower, you cannot sleep with her. So flower mean menstruation. It's the same word hyperakmos that's used in 1 Corinthians 7:36. But if you go to any of these new translation, RSV, NIV, all these new international version, new English, all these new version, they completely destroy it and change the meaning. If they ask you, let's go to the NIV or RSV or ESV, tell them, how come the Holy Spirit, who's supposed to be inside of you, never told any of these Christian scholars that hyperakmos mean anything different than what it means today in Greek?
Let them be married. And some women they reach puberty at 8, and some women reach puberty of 9. So that's what Paul is teaching, unless you could prove me wrong. So just to get the context, go to Leviticus 15:24, and it starts at 19. If you want the full context about seeing your period and blood touching you, how you're not supposed to lay with the woman and stuff. And in Africa here, a lot of preachers they use this verse to say that they can have sex before marriage because it says if you think you act uncommonly, how do you act uncommonly with somebody you haven't married? So they say you can test drive, before you start driving. Before you buy the car, you can test drive. Some preachers here use this verse. So do you get
Um,
that understanding or not? Flower of her
I
age, hyperachmos in Greek.
no no. Let's go one step at a time. So it's really interesting.
After
You mentioned many
everything
things you
I
said.
said,
So
instead
let's
of
start with the
dealing with
Islamic
the
view.
Bible verses and
So
telling me I'm
you are
wrong,
suggesting
he is not even going to
that
deal with
a
it because he
6 year
never
old child is a
heard
woman.
this argument.
No,
But
I
he's
say
a very smart
I say you can
and
have it,
shrewd guy.
but
So he's going to
she's a
deal
woman when she see
with
reach the age
uh,
which was
child
which was
marriage in
9,
Islam.
then you can
But
marry.
when I show him
So a
clear
9 year
verses in the
old
Bible, he
girl
will not
is not a child
defend
but a
the
woman.
Bible. He
Why
will
exactly did
just
these things happen?
attack and
What do you mean?
scrutinize
Happen?
Islam.
I
That
mean,
shows you
to
he
call a 9
doesn't
year old
have
a
the
woman,
tools or
to
the
me,
intellect
either
to
the person
defend
doesn't
what
know
I just
basic vocabulary
presented about
or he
his
is thoroughly
own
confused,
Bible.
or maybe some other indoctrination is at play. I'd like to ask you very sincerely,
Mm.
when, I mean, where exactly, can you cite any particular examples right now where a 9 year old could be called a woman and not a child?
A 9 year old, if she reaches puberty and she's
Ignore the if. Ignore the ifs. You can give any sort of ifs later, but can you cite an example, evidence, anywhere in the world today where a 9 year old is categorized as a woman as opposed to a child?
why you gotta limit yourself to today only? This happened 1400 years ago.
No, no, I'm asking. I'm starting from now. Let's do one step at a time, please. Right now, do you have any example outside of Islam where a 9 year old child would be called a woman and not a child?
What do you mean right now? Today?
Today, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like if you go to Angola, which is Africa, it's 80% Christian. The age of consent is 12 years old. They go by Mary's age, and it's 80% Christian. So if you have, the thing is, usually people use the West as a standard. And Africa, like Aisha got married at 9. She was one of the highest hadith reporter. She didn't complain about her marriage. She was pretty much happy as she grew because Prophet Muhammad died before her.
Uh, uh,
She got
Jalof FC, please. You need to. Let's go through this one step at a time, so we
mhm.
don't lose track of each other.
Okay.
So in Angola, 12-year-olds, you said
Yeah, it's
12,
a
being 12. I'm talking about 9 years. That's already 25% or 30%, 33.33% increase already. I'm talking about 9 year old. I'm talking about 6 year old. Okay, if you ignore the 6 year old because that's
In
the
the
age of the
Quran,
marriage in this particular case, the Quran
unlike
does
the
say like that.
Bible,
Six
we
years old.
have a
I'd like
criteria
to
for
deal with 6 years
marriage.
old in a minute.
It's
9 year
not
old, you said
about age,
that
it's
you're suggesting
about
that that's a woman,
physical
and I'd like to find
and
out about
mental
9 year. Don't go to 12
readiness.
yet. Speak about 9 year old.
That's why
Where in the world is
every
a 9 year
time
old a woman?
Allah speaks
Apart from
about
in Islam.
marriage, He uses
so
the
here
word
when you
Nisa,
reach
which
9,
is
it's
woman.
not just the age.
Surah 4.
Because even if you were
If
13,
you go to Surah 81,
physical
verse
levels are
8,
key. The
wa
Bible
iza
says
ma'uda,
if the parents
that's
agree and
young
With all due respect, you
girl.
need to, with all due
And
respect,
in Surah
you
4,
need to answer the
verse
question.
6,
I'm not asking you for
Allah
your opinion
talks
right
about
now. With all due respect,
marriageable
you're not God
age,
and
and
you're not an
it's
expert.
in
You're not a
relation
practitioner
with
who's trying to give
mental
some ideas as to what a woman
readiness.
is, who a girl is.
And
That's not
Allah
my interest
uses
right now. I'm
orphan
just trying to
and
understand why you're
woman
presenting Islam
interchangeably.
showing up as a
In
Muslim,
Surah
and I'm trying to
4,
understand why I'm
verse
asking the question.
3,
Please,
when
please
Allah
respect
is
my opinion.
talking about you
I'll
can
give you my
marry
question.
two,
The question is precise.
3,
Outside of
4,
Islamic
but
world,
if you
where do
fear
you
you
find
cannot
an
be
example
equitable
of
and fair,
where
only marry one,
old is
the verse
called a
starts with
woman
orphan.
as opposed to a child.
And Surah
I
4,
answered you. I
verse
said,
19
I
says,
said to
you
you,
cannot
you have
force
to be a man
marriage
to
or
commit the crime in the
inherit
present
a
world.
woman
In other words,
against
can you please
her
answer me? You
will.
haven't given an example. Are you
And
here? You did not give an
Sunan
example. It's very simple.
Abu Dawood
Please be sincere about this.
2096, which
Just
is the
say,
hadith. I
what is an
already gave the
example of
Quran, now the
woman? It's
hadith.
very simple. You
Sunan
haven't
Abu
done.
Dawud
A country of a
2096.
9-year-old is
You're
not
not
ready.
supposed to marry somebody
Suppose if you're
against
not
their
at the
will.
age of consent,
Bukhari
the
5136
trial
also.
being ongoing.
So we have a
If it's you, you have to
criteria
agree to give
in
your
Islam which the
everything and
Bible
all
I'm
our
talking about
doesn't
9-year-old. Please take the
have.
question at hand. Please don't throw in red herrings.
I'm not
Red herrings don't say help us in our conversation. If you want the conversation to be productive, please stick to the details. Deal with the details. Please. Red herrings, smoke screens, not entertained. So again, apologies. I'm
he's gone. Anyway, what I'm saying is 9 years old, 10 years old, Islam, we have a criteria, which you don't have in the Bible. Our criteria is you have to reach, you have to be physically and mentally ready, and your mahram has to agree. Your parents know if you're fit for.
sure. Joel FFC, apologies. I only now I've got you back. Really apologize.
No, you
But
want hearing.
come again.
It's your connection that's
What's
not
that?
good. I said it's your
Yeah, yeah.
connection.
Unfortunately, today you are right. Today it seems like my connection is a bit unstable. I don't know if it's because I moved something around, which I did. Because I had a debate elsewhere um, last evening, and so my system has been set up again today. Apologies. It's my mistake from what I gather. So no example place where a 9-year-old is a woman. We agree.
Like I said, Islam doesn't put an age. You have to be physically and mentally ready. And if you
But I'm
physically,
not asking. I'm not asking Islam right now. I'm not asking. The question is very simple. No example of a place or a country. Some sort of a geographic reference where you can cite a 9-year-old being called a woman today. Yeah.
yeah, today, I mean, today with the Western influence, people change their mind and like women are not subjected to the same thing they were subjected to 1400 years ago. People live longer.
Please,
And
please ignore. Please today. No example. That's good. Okay.
yeah,
That's good. That's a good start. That's a good start. Now, so today a 9-year-old is not a woman. We agree.
a,
Please, do you have a question?
wait, I didn't say that. I said a 9-year-old is now recognized by the Westerner as a woman. But if she,
Ignore the West.
in
Take
the
the East. Take any place in the world.
in the
Don't
side,
don't.
I'm saying in the side of God, if you're physically and mentally ready, because God put the menstruation on you, that means you're ready to give birth. And
Say
if
so.
so,
Say so. We'll no. Let's put it this way. I mean, let's be intellectually understanding here, Jolopsy. Who
okay.
you call God is not God to me. He doesn't exist. So you can try and bring in your indoctrination already, but doesn't help in our conversation. I
So it's
don't
bringing
believe for a moment.
nation,
Please, Jolop,
right?
what's that?
I say you bringing your indoctrination too, right? What you believe
I
is
did not bring in anything as much. No, I did not bring in anything apart from asking a question. The
okay.
question was simple. The question had to deal with facts on the ground, nothing to do with God so far. I just asked for facts on the ground because
So
I'd really like to see who are all confused.
now,
Because I'd like to see who is confused enough to call a 9-year-old child a woman. If someone say, like I said earlier, if someone is going to call a 9-year-old a woman, in my view, he either doesn't have a basic command over vocabulary, or he is confused. Some level of confusion is going on. You agree there is no such place in the world. That's really a good start. Wonderful. No
okay.
one is going to call a 9-year-old a woman today for all practical purposes.
Is today the standards for all time? Because Even
We'll
in,
we'll come to that. We'll
but
come to that in a minute. We'll
okay,
come to that in a minute.
can I say something? In
Sure.
America, 1899, the age of consent, anybody can Google it. It was 7 years old and 9 years old. What changed from 1899, which is 81 years before I was born, till today? Back in the
For sure.
days, people used to marry young because of the situation. Now with the help of God, those things change. People mature later. Some
Joel
now,
FC. Joel
oh,
of FC.
yeah. So I
We're not
gave
looking. We're not looking for an Islamic rant. We're looking for a conversation. And I'm asking a few questions. You had your time to present what you had to present. Please, I'm asking a few questions. Please answer my questions. Number two, take America of the 19th century, take any other country of any century you like, but answer my question.
mhm.
Which country, at what point in time, called, for which you have evidence, called a 9-year-old child a woman?
Just Google the age of consent in America in
Excuse me, Jolov,
1899.
you are an intelligent gentleman.
I just
I'm
gave you
not
the
asking for age of consent. I'm not asking for age of consent. I asked a very particular question, and the question was a woman. In which particular period of time, in which particular nation, please provide evidence where a 9-year-old is treated as a woman as opposed to a
what
child.
is consent? What does it
Well,
mean?
age of consent could be anything, I mean, I have a toy, I have a 2-year-old. I have toys with me, and some toys are 3+ years, so 2+years or 1+. As long as it's 2+years, it's age appropriate. She can give consent and make use of it. Age of consent is not what we are talking about right now at all, because age of consent could depend. The age of consent for my baby to choose when she'd like to request to go to the park next door is when she was 2 years old. That was her age of consent. We asked her, hey, would you like to go to the park? She said yes. We said, okay, let's go. That's the age of consent. We're not dealing with that. Age of consent is a very different concept. What do you mean? Is that is age of consent? Is age of
Age of consent to get married. You know what I'm talking about. Age of consent to get married in America was 7 to 9 years old in 1899. You're talking
sure,
about
So
what?
what? Yeah,
Huh?
this
sure.
What do you mean?
that's
So what? So that means this
that.
is just new.
Hold
This is
on, hold
liberalism you guys
on,
using.
Please,
hold
please,
on, hold
more
it.
light, less heat.
If if
Please.
if that happened, then the Americans were wrong. Okay,
According to who?
simple.
According to who? I just gave you a verse in the
Excuse
Bible
me,
that says
hold
it's okay to
it.
marry a young person.
Hold on.
It's
If you
funny.
have a child
One
that's
guy
8
is
years old,
American
are you gonna
and
say that
Arul
child's gonna say,
is
"Daddy, I want
from
to get married
England.
now"? He doesn't
When
even know what the word marriage
America
means.
was Christian
Okay, so
nation
when Arul is talking about
before it
consent,
became
who's consenting
liberalism
to
and
what?
secularism,
Is
the
that child
age of
capable of
consent in
understanding the
America
intricacies
in
of marriage life? No.
1899
An
is
adult
in their
is.
history
That
books,
is why
in their
in scripture the
bills
Bible
of
says
amendment.
only
The
adults can
age of
marry,
consent
not
was
little
9.
toddlers.
And if you go
That
to
doesn't make any sense.
Delaware,
That is
the
sexual
DMV,
abuse.
Delaware,
I
that
That is
state,
sexual
the
abuse.
age of consent
Don't you think
in
that is sexual abuse?
I
1880
gave you a verse
was
in the Bible.
No,
7
I'm asking
years
you as
old.
a gentleman.
So
As a gentleman, do
1899
you agree that
was
that is sexually
81 years
abusing
before
a
I was born.
child
So that wasn't long
in
ago
any
when
culture?
America was full of churches,
Otherwise, you don't
a
understand.
Christian
You know what's the
nation
difference between right and wrong?
before World War
So
One and World War
I'm
Two, and it
asking you,
became a
what's the
liberal
standard?
and
The
secular
Lord Jesus
country.
said, if you
This is
abuse
what
a
they were
child,
doing.
it'll be
And
better
for
for
our
you
rule,
to put a
when
millstone around your neck and
England
throw
was a
you into the
Christian nation,
Mediterranean Sea.
they used to
That's the
burn
judgment.
women
Are you
and
willing to
accuse
accept that
them of
judgment?
being witches.
all I'm telling
That's
you is
what
I gave you the Bible
Christianity
verse in
Christian
the
used to
Bible that
do.
agrees with child
All
marriage.
those women
It says
they burn
it
and
says that
accuse of being witches in
Joseph FC,
England.
you had your time to
It was
present.
when
Now
England
we
was
are
a Christian nation.
evaluating.
Now that it's
During the Vatican
secular,
scrutiny,
they
you asked questions.
separated the state
We're not into
from the
political
church.
indoctrinations. We
Now
understand. We're
England
trying to
stopped
understand.
all those barbaric. Those women weren't witches.
why you
They
running
No, no,
from
just
no,
the
no,
had
no.
question.
I'm going to
hunchback and
we are
they
not
look a little
using
weird.
ages.
and you will
That
accuse
was
them
good,
of
nice.
being witch
And we are
and burn
starting
them
right
to
now with
death.
stage two, Jollof FC. And the say stage two is Sai mentioned it. I asked earlier, who in their right mind would think a 9-year-old is a woman? If anyone, it does not matter what anyone referred to as the age of consent, wherever, in whatever document, for whatever. But if a 9-year-old was seen as a woman, we need mental health treatment. Are you insisting today a 9-year-old is a woman?
I just gave you an example of America's law, which is your standard, all you
No,
Westerners.
the
If
question was
any time
specific. The question
you were
was
allowed to get married at you were allowed to get married at 8.
The conversation
let's
actually
get the document.
wasn't too
Let's
bad.
get the document right now.
I've seen Arul in other videos, and he's like a
No,
wolf
no, let's
in
no, 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 no,
sheep
no, no,
clothing,
no.
but
Excuse me.
he wasn't mean.
You
I
know that
wasn't mean, so I'm not gonna
most of the
mention the
day.
killing
Are you
of
kidding me?
innocent breastfeeding babies in the Bible.
99 that
But what I like to say to Arul, all these things he's mentioning is not from
I'm
Christianity.
sorry, that's not the way
It
to
is from
approach it. If
secularism
you're
and
debating,
liberalism.
you present
When
your evidence.
England, America, all these Western
Let's go
countries,
through the
when they were
document.
Christians,
Let's go through the document.
they didn't have no age of consent.
Really interesting,
Even now,
please.
if you look
Non
at
Muslims, you
Italy,
can't just say
the
something
age of consent
nonsense
in Italy
that we don't know.
in 2024 is
Let's do
14.
that and let's
In Germany
try and find out
is
who really is.
14.
anybody that's listening,
In
they can go
England
to it or go
is
to the Bible.
16.
Excuse me,
So
Joel FFC.
a
Anyone who is listening or who
pedophile
haven't got a clue,
in
please provide the
England
document. We'll bring that up on the
is
screen
perfectly
and we'll go
fine
through that.
in Italy if the girl is
I'll
15
tell
or
you right now, right
14.
that
And in Italy,
Give us
which
the
has
reference. Give us
some
the
of the
reference.
oldest
On what
churches in
document we can
Europe,
look at right now, please.
if you're a 17-year-old, you can, with consent, you can have a sex with a 13-year-old. And I'm not lying. You can look into these documents. It's well documented. So you guys can't even come up with the age which is
Yeah,
appropriate.
we'll figure out. Yeah, yeah.
Come to Islam,
all you guys
and
are doing
Islam have guidelines.
liberalism and
Surah 4,
No, 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 no,
verse
no.
6.
Excuse me. We're not interested in your nonsense. 9-year-old child,
He
you want to
knows
call
I'm
as a
on my
woman.
phone and
Excuse,
he's
sir.
asking me
We
for
really want
evidence.
some serious evidence
I
from you.
cannot
Not
share my
this kind of
screen
talk.
or do
We would like to
anything.
treat you.
He
No, no,
just
no, no.
wanted to get rid of me
Unless you
because
provide
he looked
a
up
coherent,
the
meaningful
reference I
argument
gave him
for why a
and he
9-year-old
knows
child should be
I'm
treated as
telling
a
the
woman.
truth.
We are just going to
The
go with
Western
the
people
idea
cannot
that
even
people need mental
agree
health.
on the right
Yeah,
age.
please,
14 here,
please.
16
No
here,
interest in
France
indoctrination.
15,
First Corinthians
Please provide
7:36.
America
evidence.
16,
First Corinthians
Italy
7:36. Paul
14,
said the
We're
same thing.
Germany
coming there. We're
14.
coming there
You go
because
to
we have.
Africa,
We
Angola
have no. We
12.
have no reason.
So come to
And you
Allah,
Joel
guys
He
FFC.
mentioned
gives you
Did
the
you?
right
Joel
criteria
FFC?
when the
Did
woman
you
is
hear what I'm saying?
mentally and
yeah, okay, I'll come
physically
back.
able
Please, please.
and the family that loves him agree that she's ready to get married. That's the right time.